All right, let's just jump right in. Welcome to this step-by-step explainer designed to completely take the headache out of wiping, provisioning, and troubleshooting your Mac fleet. If you manage Apple devices, you know the drill. Getting a machine from the hands of a previous user, making sure it's completely wiped and perfectly configured for a brand new user can honestly feel like a total obstacle course, but it really doesn't have to be. Today, we're going to break down the exact workflow to make this entire process seamless, efficient, and incredibly easy to follow. Here's our game plan for today. We've got 5 clear steps. First up, prep to avoid activation lock. Second, entering macOS recovery. Third, navigating the utilities window. Fourth, troubleshooting any of those annoying recovery roadblocks. And finally, running through the jammed cloud enrollment steps. We're taking you from the exact moment you receive that used Mac to the very second it's fully provisioned. Okay, step 1, prep. Specifically, avoiding activation lock. We call this step 0, really, because skipping this initial phase can literally bring your entire deployment to a grinding halt before you even get started.
You know the trap, right? Activation lock. It's tied directly to the Find My app, and honestly, it does exactly what it's supposed to do: prevent unauthorized use of a lost device. But for us in an IT environment, it's a massive roadblock if the previous user didn't sign out. So before you do anything, before you even think about completely resetting that Mac, you absolutely must verify that the Find My feature is disabled. Because if you wipe the drive first, you'll trigger the lock, and there's no way around it without that original Apple ID.
But hey, let's say you do hit a wall. You get a machine, and you simply cannot sign out of the existing Apple ID. Don't panic, and definitely do not force a wipe yet. Just follow this easy 3-step escape route. 1. Grab the device's serial number. 2. Kick that specific serial number up to your SysAdmin team. And 3. Let them remotely disable the lock using Apple's School Manager. Sticking to this order clears the path so you can actually get back to work.
Once you're absolutely sure the machine is clear of any locks, we move to step 2, entering macOS recovery. This is where we hit a major fork in the road, and it depends entirely on the hardware sitting inside your Mac. See, Apple totally changed how we access recovery based on the chip. If you've got a shiny, newer Mac with Apple Silicon, it's incredibly streamlined. Make sure the Mac is off, then press and just keep holding the power button until you see Loading Startup Options and click Options. Simple. But if you're working with an older Intel-based Mac, you gotta rely on the classic keyboard combo. Turn the Mac on and immediately press and hold Command and R until you see the Apple logo or a spinning globe. Quick tip here. If you aren't sure which chip you're dealing with, it's perfectly safe to just try the Intel method first. If it doesn't work, pivot to the Apple Silicon method.
Right, assuming you've successfully booted into recovery, that brings us to step 3, the utilities window. Let's look at the built-in tools you're going to see right away.
This is basically your central command hub. You've got a few primary tools at your disposal. You can restore from a time machine backup, you can completely reinstall the operating system, or you can jump into Disk Utility to repair or erase the startup disk. Also, keep in mind that advanced tools like the terminal are quietly tucked away up in the menu bar if you ever need them, but since we're provisioning a clean machine today, Disk Utility is exactly what we're targeting.
Let's walk through an Intel Mac reset as an example. We need to systematically follow 4 exact steps in Disk Utility so we don't mess this up. First, open Disk Utility. Second, and this is crucial, select the top-level volume of the drive, not a partition underneath it. You want the absolute highest level disk shown. Third, click Erase. And fourth, you must ensure it's formatted as a GUID partition map and APFS. Once that erase bar finishes, you've got a pristine, wiped drive ready for a fresh macOS installation.
Now, if only it were always that easy, right? Welcome to the real world of IT management, where keyboards randomly drop and strange errors pop out of nowhere. That brings us to step 4, troubleshooting recovery roadblocks. Picture this. You're holding Command R. On an Intel Mac, your fingers are cramping, and the computer just boots normally. It's beyond frustrating. If your Mac is ignoring your keystrokes at startup, rapidly run through this hardware checklist. If it's a laptop, always default to the built-in keyboard. If you absolutely have to use an external one, give it a few seconds to wake up. Wait for the status light to flash before you press any keys. Wireless keyboard acting up, find a wire and plug it in directly. And finally, double-check you aren't accidentally using a Windows PC layout keyboard. You really need that Mac layout to make sure the Command key actually registers during the boot sequence. Okay, but what if the keys register just fine, but the built-in recovery system is totally corrupted? Well, your Mac will automatically try to launch Internet Recovery, but you can actually force this manually too. Command R gives you the built-in system,
But if you hold Option-Command-R or Shift-Option-Command-R, you're literally forcing the Mac to bypass its internal drive and pull the recovery tools directly from Apple servers over the web. And heads up, those different combinations actually dictate the specific version of macOS you'll be offered for reinstallation, so definitely keep this cheat sheet handy.
All right, you navigated the roadblocks, the drive is formatted, and macOS is reinstalled. The machine is sitting pretty at the welcome screen. That brings us to Step 5, Jamf Cloud Enrollment Steps, where we finally lock this device into our management system.
Since all new device enrollments process directly via Jamf Cloud now, it's highly automated, provided you follow these 4 chronological steps. 1. Just click normally through the initial out-of-box setup, language, region, until you hit the Wi-Fi prompt. 2. The second you connect to a valid Wi-Fi network, it'll reach out to Apple and automatically trigger the remote management screen. 3. Simply click Enroll. And 4. You'll be prompted to log in as an admin to authenticate and finalize it. Boom. It is that straightforward.
But hold up, the job isn't totally done just because the progress bar finished. Once the Mac is enrolled, you have to jump into your Jamf Cloud console to configure the actual management settings. There are 2 vital parameters here. First is the site. You must assign the device to the correct grouping for your location, like CTAE, SPED, or TSV. But secondly, and most crucially, you have to configure the room setting. You've got to assign it as student, staff, or admin. This specific setting is literally the linchpin. It dictates the user's permissions, the software they get, and their App Store access. If you get this wrong, they're going to have the wrong experience right out of the gate.
Now, listen up, because I want to draw your attention to a very specific network quirk you need to be aware of right now. If a user needs to sign into their Apple ID on their newly provisioned machine, doing it on the standard district network might just straight up fail. Why? Because the district firewall actively blocks a lot of Apple service connections for security reasons. So, if a sign-in is required, skipping a hotspot connection is going to lead you right into a firewall brick wall. You must connect the Mac temporarily to a cellular hotspot just to authenticate that Apple ID successfully.
And while we're on the subject of Apple IDs, let's emphasize this massive warning pulled straight from the guidelines. Users should never, ever use an @forsythk12.org or an @forsythk12.ga.us email for an Apple ID. Using a managed district email for a personal or unmanaged Apple ID creates some frankly horrific account conflicts and security vulnerabilities down the line. Enforce this rule strictly. Your IT support staff will thank you later, I promise.
And just like that, we've reached the end of our workflow. By treating this entire process, from checking for activation lock early to utilizing the correct recovery keys, formatting properly, and seamlessly handing it off to Jamf Cloud as a clear, step-by-step mission, you entirely eliminate the guesswork. No more staring helplessly at blinking folders or fighting with network errors for hours on end. So the question I'll leave you with today is this. With your deployment workflow finally mastered and completely streamlined, just how many hours is your IT team going to reclaim this semester? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy deploying.
Yeah, came through flexing cause they know I got the sauce. Got the presence on me, I can't ever take it off. That's why I came country boy stepping, yeah, I'm country boy stepping. Country boy stepping, yeah, I'm country boy stepping. Yeah, they can't get like me, rocking boots and white tees.